the most significant thing that we do is teach you how to dig and feed for yourselves. Because there will be times in your life when you may not be around a good church that feeds you. There are churches, I hate to say this, that you're barely getting cotton candy on Sunday mornings. You're not getting the meat of God's word. You won't get enough to survive on, and therefore, the most important thing for us to do is to make sure you can survive even when you're not around a good church. Good churches not only see to the care and feeding of the sheep, they teach the sheep how to graze themselves. So today we're going to try a little something different, and we're going to approach Matthew chapter 12, although most of what we're going to do is we're going to start with, the passages we're going to deal with are Deuteronomy 18 and Hebrews 10 before we run over to Matthew chapter 12. And God showed me this and said, why don't we work at teaching our folks to view the scriptures from the offices of Jesus? Now, we're tied up. I mean, what's the most important office, generally speaking, for you as an individual? Prophet, priest, or king? Priest. Because as priest, he makes the one sacrifice for sins forever. And that, my friends, is where the rubber meets the road. God's forgiveness and God's grace, God's mercy and God's justice met together in the person of Jesus Christ, who sacrifices himself on the cross. That is our point of contact, okay? Personally. For me, I don't know if it is for anybody else, but for me, it's like, you mean someone has paid for my sins? I was like, oh yeah, I'll take that. That was a long time ago. I was 17 years old. I'm 63 now, okay? That was the point of contact for me, that someone loved me so much as to take my place, take the punishment that I richly deserved. That was a big deal for me. So, as a personal point of contact for me, in his office as priest, it's the most significant thing. But you know, as we study the Bible, as we get past that young Christian stage, we get past the infant stage and past the toddler stage and get into the adolescent stage, we begin to see that every time you read the Bible, you're getting something more out of it. So what we're going to try to do today is look at the scriptures and how they affect us in the various offices that Jesus has. So let's start by going to Deuteronomy chapter 18. I want you to remember now, when we finally get to Matthew chapter 12, one of the things you want to bear in mind is that Jesus is speaking to the Jews. He's speaking to the nation and the Jewish leaders, who, by the way, are not only spiritual but political as well. And, of course, he's speaking to the common people. So that's going to be the context of our study there. But let's look at the offices that Jesus holds. As a prophet, who wants to tell me what the office of the prophet was and what the prophet's primary task was to do? Come on, let me see it. Okay, inform. Okay, inform, remind people of the promises. What was the thing that prophets usually wound up having to do in the Old Testament? What? Who said that? Aaron, very good. The biggest prophets as a rule only turn up when things are what? Things are bad, when people are doing stuff wrong. A prophet, if you study your Old Testament prophets, very few of them are bringing messages of sweetness and light. Most of the time, they're bringing in like, yo, you people are in trouble. They are bringing the warning. They are like, God's not happy, and you're going to find out how unhappy he is. He was there primarily to warn people of God's impending judgment. There's a subtext to this, however. So in Deuteronomy chapter 18, God makes a promise to Moses. Anybody want to read verses 15 through 19? Anybody? Don't make me do all the work here. Come on. Aaron, would you read us Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19?
The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me, and unto him you shall hearken. According to all that thou desirest of the Lord thy God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, Let me not hear again
key words here are found in verse 15 and verse 18. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me. Unto him shall ye hearken. And then again in verse 18, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. That's when, it's interesting that when John the Baptist turns up, the Jews ask him, art thou that prophet? That's a reference directly back to this passage in Deuteronomy 18, because that prophet is that prophet like unto Moses. Moses, and this is just for free, Moses gives signs. Yeah, you like those little ones for free? I throw a lot of freebies in. Moses is the first man upon whom divine healing occurs. Moses is the miracle man. Moses turns up and he turns water into what? Blood. Jesus turns up and he turns water into, okay. Moses, God tells Moses, Moses, put your hand inside your cloak. Okay, pull it out. Leprosy, put it back in. Pull it back out. Ah, it's clean. See, Moses has the signs that are given to the nation of Israel. Therefore, when you see Jesus doing the miracles that he does, these signs are types and parallels to the same stuff that Moses did. God was trying his best to reach the nation of Israel. He was trying to show them, hey, look, that prophet is here from among thy brethren, like unto thee. He was doing his best to reach Israel. We know that if you've read the book of Romans, you know in Romans 11, God said, okay, nation of Israel, you don't want your Messiah, you don't want me, fine. I'm pulling you out, I'm pulling the Gentiles in, but I ain't done with you. I'm coming back. You will have dealings yet. That's why we believe in the restoration of Israel. We believe that Israel becoming a nation in 1948 is a big deal. We believe that last month when our president recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, that was a big deal, because these are all things that are rolling us down towards the end times. And yes, I was in favor of it, and it got a lot of people very angry. Guess who doesn't care? Be on God's side. Always be on God's side. Don't side against God. When God says he's in favor of something or someone, just roll with it. Just roll with it. Don't oppose it, because that's it never ends well. So we see that now does Jesus provide warning when he gets to this mortal coil, when he appears in his ministry, starting at the wedding in Cana of Galilee? Is he warning people? Yes, he gives them warning. He warns them and says, God is going to bring judgment. First, upon the nation of Israel, because you people are not obeying me with your heart. You're just giving me lip service. And more than once with the religious leaders, the Pharisees, the people who were religious leaders, many times he came to them and he said, you're supposed to recognize me. If you knew the Father, you would know me. And many times he warns them that impending judgment. When the warning to judgment is ignored, then what happens? Bad things happen. Bad things happen. Israel loses their nation. They lose their place. The Roman general Titus comes in 70 AD and flattens the joint and disperses the Jews. And it's what's that the result of? That's the result of not paying attention. Not paying attention. When God sends prophets to give warning. And Jesus has a role as a prophet. Now, prophets also have other roles. They predict the future. They don't predict the future. They tell you the future, because who knows the future better than God? That's the part about God that we always have issues with. He exists in time, but he exists outside of time. But he's also, stop and think about this. If you're omnipresent, always present, if you're omniscient, all-knowing, first off, you know everything. Can I say this? Omnipresence is more than just being there, being everywhere. Omnipresence can also refer to time. Won't it be interesting when we start talking to God about time and he says, well, I was there, and then you ask him about another time, he says, well, I was there, and then you realize that God is present at all points in time at all times. Mind blown. Okay? You can never, as I've been known to kid, you can't throw God a surprise party. Doesn't work. So he doesn't predict the future. The prophet doesn't predict the future, but he tells you about it. And he tells you, and it says, how many times in the Bible, and it came to pass, and it came to pass, and when these things shall come to pass, and I'll tell you what happens? They come to pass. They come to pass. That's the way it is. Now, God always provides a warning before judgment. His way is to use the prophet to do so. Whether people will heed that warning is always their choice, but he is fair in his dealings with people and with mankind. Now, the second role that Jesus has is as a priest. A priest, by definition, has a couple of roles. Well, number one, a priest makes an offering. There is some kind of an offering or sacrifice that is to be made. We, now that we have gone past the Old Testament priesthood, which no longer exists, and now, as the New Testament calls us, a kingdom of priests, we have offerings to make too. But the offering the most commonly heard is the offering of praise. It's one of the reasons why I like that song, Praise Him. The other reason I like it is because it mentions Jesus as prophet, priest, and king. There was a different outlook on the offices of Jesus prior to the 20th century. Most people saw Jesus as a king now. But that's not true. We'll talk about that shortly. Talk about that real soon. We'll go back to being priest. The role of the priest is to offer sacrifices and act as a mediator. The priests of the Old Testament, or if you prefer the Old Covenant, was to bring a blood sacrifice into the presence of God. And in that place, they mediated a peace. But it was only a temporary peace between God and his people. They would bring in the blood, they would bring in the hyssop, and they would sprinkle the blood of the lamb on the mercy seat. This was to make an atonement for the sins of the people. This was to make peace between God and his people. But as we read it, we'll be dealing with, so as a matter of fact, when we get to Hebrews chapter 10. Anybody want to read Hebrews chapter 10? Got 3 verses in Hebrews 10, 11 through 13. Come on, don't let me see the same hands all the time. Somebody say something. Okay, Michael, would you please read us Hebrews 10, 11 through 13.
Every priest standeth daily ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of God, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool.
There's some interesting stuff in these 3 verses. It says, daily ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifice which can never take away sins. This is the temporary nature of sacrifice for sin in the Old Testament. This is why it's the Old Testament. It no longer has effect because it could never be effective, because it could not take away sin on a permanent basis. This is why Jesus, in his role of priest, to me at least, this is his most pertinent role for me personally, because he himself is the sacrifice. He is a priest, but he doesn't offer a sacrifice. The sacrifice he offers is himself. And in that role, he takes my place as a substitute. And for me, that's personal. And that's where, for me, I have the most intimate, that is the most intimate point of contact that I have with the Lord Jesus Christ. Him taking my place. I don't know how it is for you, but that's how it is for me. And then it's an interesting thing in verse 13 where it says, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. Kind of sounds like somebody's planning on ruling the roost. Kind of like that. So that finally takes us to the final role that he has as king. He will take his place as a king. Up until the 20th century, most of Christianity believed that Jesus was slowly becoming the king of the earth. Things got so good during the time between the Reformation and the Great Awakenings that people began to think that Jesus was going to come back to take over a kingdom that was already his. But it doesn't work that way. You never have a kingdom before you have a king. And the earthly presence of Jesus as a king is not yet. It's coming, but of course it is not yet. Most of the theologians and believers prior to the 20th century did not understand that. They did not see that. They did not see the return of Jesus. Most of now I'm not being nasty. I am not denigrating the Catholics and the Protestants when I say this. I'm simply stating facts. Most of Catholic and Reformed theology does not recognize the literal physical return of Jesus as a king. They see him slow. They see the world getting better and better and better as Christianity spreads, and then Jesus comes back. That's not how God does things. God gives you a king, then you have a kingdom. We do not have the physical presence of Jesus yet. I get excited thinking about that. When I got saved, I started reading the Bible. What's the first book of the Bible I read? What book of the Bible do you think was the first one I read when I got saved? Revelation. What's next? I want to know. that was a big deal for me, and as such, I have been a student of prophecy for a long, long time, and there's nothing wrong with that. And prophecy, the Spirit of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. You'll find that verse in the Bible, so I have no problem. You want to study prophecy? Knock yourself out. I'm glad to watch you do it. I help you do it, because it is part of, hey, what's next? Well, hey, what's next is no king, no kingdom. So that is the problem with that kind of theology that says we're going to establish the kingdom first and then we're going to bring back the king. No, we bring back the king and then he establishes the kingdom. In John chapter 18, you don't have to turn there. In John chapter 18, Pontius Pilate, who is delivering judgment on Jesus Christ, asks him, he says, "Are you a king?" And Jesus basically says, "Well, you say I am." He won't give him a straight answer because this is how things have to play out. In verse 36, during this questioning by Pontius Pilate in John 18:36, Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom," three important words, "not from hence." Jesus is saying, okay, this is going to be the way it's going to be. The form of the kingdom is going to change. We're going to move into a kingdom that is not the kingdom of heaven, as we have seen all through the book of Matthew. We're going to move into the kingdom of God. Well, I've belabored that point plenty of times. I'm not going to spend any more time talking about it. In Revelation 19, we talk about the return of Jesus. The Apostle John, interesting guy, very interesting fellow. And by the way, that's the second book of the Bible that I studied, was John, presenting Jesus as God and man. In Revelation chapter 19, from the pen of the Apostle John, in verse 15 it says, "And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords." There will be no mistaking Jesus when he returns. Listen, we know, those of us who study prophecy know a few things. We know that someday there will be a one-world government. The last four presidents in a row have been one-worlders. Every president since Ronald Reagan has been, let's reduce the United States of America and bring in a new world order. George H.W. Bush uttered those words and said, New World Order. And you'll hear it. You'll hear New Order, One world. You're going to hear these. You'll hear these terms. You've been hearing them ever since Ronald Reagan retired from the presidency. This is what you're hearing. The only way you can have a one world government is to reduce the superpowers of this world till they are no longer superpowers. You couldn't have as long as there's one big dog on the block, you can't have a one world government. So this is why every president since Reagan has sought to reduce this country to something less. I'm not in favor of that, my friends. I know that someday it's going to happen. I'm hoping it doesn't happen on my watch. I'm a little politically active. It's not the biggest show on earth. The greatest show on earth is the one we have right here, bringing Jesus to people, telling them about his sacrifice, what he's done for people personally. But I'm willing to fight with both hands. Okay? So if you get, I hope you don't go too upset with my political posts, but anything that reduces this country, makes it less than the power that it should be. And by the way, folks, when you look at this government, a constitutional republic, a representative democracy, it's the worst form of government on the planet until you compare it with anything else. So I'm willing to fight with both hands. But I'm going to say this. As we study that one world government, by the way, these folks that are pushing the one world government, they want to eliminate religion, they don't know what they're asking for. When the Antichrist arrives, he's going to give them, they talk about separation of church and state. That's going to get real interesting because he's going to demand worship. He will not come as a conquering king. He will come as a king who gets his position by soft soaping everybody and promising peace. That's what you get. That's what you find out when you study the book of Revelation. He's going to be the smoothest talking politician that ever came along. But when he finally turns on the people who think that they're bringing in some great, wonderful thing to this world, well, they're going to find out the price. And the price is going to be a lot more than they want to pay. I thank God that no saved person will be here at that time. I'm a premillennialist. I am a pre-tribulationist every step of the way with every atom of my body, all the fiber of my being. We can't, listen, when you hear, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God, if you think that's going to land on believers, you need to spend a little more time studying the grace of God. No, that's going to be a time for those who are not believers. We won't be here. We have the blessing hope. We have the blessed hope. We have the catching away. We got a better thing coming for us than what's coming for those who have not heeded the warning that Jesus brought. Jesus brought us grace and truth. Jesus brought us unconditional love, but he also brought a warning. Rejection comes at a price, and that's a reality. Can't get past it. That is a reality. Okay. Now, the supposed king, this poser king, who will turn out to be the Antichrist, will conquer the world through peace. Jesus doesn't come back in peace. Jesus comes back in war. The Lord our God is a mighty man of war. That's what's going to be seen at the end of the tribulation. So, I noticed another interesting thing about this business of prophet, priest, and king. I've noticed that it comes in 3 tenses, just like our salvation does. I noticed that Jesus was a prophet. He walked this earth, he warned, he told the future, he talked about the kingdom, he talked about the responsibilities that each one of us has for our own sin. He came, he did good, but he no longer walks this earth and does this, does he? So he was a prophet. Now, today, who stands and makes intercession before us at the throne of God when we screw up? Who's our defense attorney? That's right. And it's Jesus. And he stands. You realize, think about this. Not only did Jesus provide himself a substitute for our sins, he also takes the role of defense attorney. The devil, who is the accuser, comes up before the throne of God and said, Do you know what Teresa did? I'm just picking on you, kid. I hope you don't mind. I'm sure I got a bigger list than you do. And God on his throne looks at his son, and Jesus stands up and says, "I got this." Says, "Yeah, that may be true, but the crime's been paid for. Paid for it in blood." Acts 20:28, God's blood. Every time we screw up and the devil accuses, our defense attorney, our advocate in heaven stands up and defends us. Think about that. He defends us. This is his role as priest. To this day, at the present time, he is still mediating for us. So he was a prophet. He is a priest. That continues. Then, one day he comes back and he will be a king. So there's three tenses to these offices. Was a prophet, is a priest, will be a king. Well, how's that like our salvation? Well, you tell. Glad you asked. If you're saved today, you have been saved from the eternal punishment and judgment for your sin. It's done. How long and how much of your sin did Jesus pay for on the cross? All of it. Yes. So all the judgment for your sin is past tense. Once you receive the Lord Jesus Christ as your Savior, once you turn from sin and turn to Jesus, done. Everything about the judgment for your sin and my sin is past tense. Currently, we are being saved from the power of sin as we grow closer to Jesus, as we follow him. This is a current situation. We have been saved from the judgment of sin, but hopefully every day as we seek the face of God, as we study the scriptures, we move a little bit further from sin and a little bit closer to God. As we do this process of sanctification moves us from where we were to where we are. I was having a conversation with my 12-year-old granddaughter last night. We wound up going out to dinner, and we were talking about different things, and I was telling stories about her mother. Got to give your grandchildren some ammunition, don't you? We were having a conversation, and we were talking about being a teenager, because now she's 12, now she's in middle school. We're talking about that. I remember these things very, very well. And we were talking a little bit, and I told her, I said, well, Papa wasn't always such a wonderful guy. Not always such a wonderful guy. As a matter of fact, in my teen years, I was kind of trouble. You know, we're not going to get too deep into that, because you don't need to know everything, but suffice it to say that your grandpa was not always the most wonderful guy there was. Well, what changed it? Well, I got saved when I was 17 years old, and it took a while for changes to really get hooked in, dug in, and really make a change that you would notice. But you know what happened? Change came what? Eventually. Eventually it did. You know? And that's the way it is in salvation. People get saved, doesn't mean some people get that instantaneous thing. Everything stuff just drops off them like a snake shedding skin. Stuff goes away. And they become, the change in them is so radical that you look at them and say, what happened to you? For some people, that's the way salvation is. It's this big bomb of a change. For others, it is not. For others, it is a slower process. Things move along at it. Listen, God gave each one of us this amazing, unique personality. He made us all as individuals. He didn't give us a corporate salvation. He gave us an individual. That's what religion gives you. Religion gives you a corporate salvation. It's supposed to fit everybody. Jesus gives you salvation that fits you. And he gives you sanctification that fits you too. I'm not here to judge how fast or how slow people are going. You know why? and you're not them either. That's why, listen, I've been in churches where everybody spends all their time looking down the nose. Oh, really? Is that what you do? Is that what you do? There are people that spend all their time passing judgment on other people. Not our business. It's God's business. Our business is to keep you tied up in God's business so God can do business with you. I don't need to do business with you. I don't need to be, Pastor Pete, no one else needs to be on you. We just want to keep you close enough to God so he stays on you. He'll take care of it. Jesus is like a guy running a fishing crew. What does the man who's running the fishery do? He tells you, you catch him, I'll clean him. That's his job. We don't need to take over Jesus' job. Let him do it. That's what he does. Okay, so now, one day we are going to graduate. We're going to shuffle off this mortal coil. Some of us are closer to it than others. Okay? I mean, I'm glad you had birthdays, 39 again, huh? Well, I'm glad you have. And by the way, I'm determined to collect as many as I can. But I've got a bunch of them. I've had a bunch of them, and I'm planning on collecting a few more. God willing, I'm going to do that. But one day I'm going to graduate. One day I'm going to leave this earthly vessel behind, this clay. I'm going to leave it behind. And I'm going to get myself something new and wonderful. I'm going to get into the presence of God. And what's not in the presence of God? Sin. See, I have been saved from the eternal judgment for sin. I am being saved from the power of sin to control my life. And one day I will be saved from the presence of sin. I won't have to deal with it anymore. Mine or anyone else's. And that'll be a wonderful thing. That's something we have to look forward to. So you see that he was a prophet. He is a priest. He will be a king. You have been saved from sin. You are being saved from the power of sin. You will be saved from the presence of sin one day. There's 3 tenses in it. God does these things in threes. It's interesting to look at the Bible and see those things. See those things. Now, we have a few minutes. If you would like to take a few minutes to look at Matthew chapter 12 and kind of examine it from the standpoint of, is Jesus, in what role is Jesus speaking? And by the way, I'm not going to keep you here. I'm going to tie you up. There are some people who will preach and preach and preach and preach and preach. And one night when Paul was preaching and the fellow fell asleep and fell out the window. I don't want to do that. I don't want you falling out the window. Here we go. Matthew chapter 12. At that time, Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were an hungered, and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. But he said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was an hungered, and how they that were with him, how he entered into the house of God, and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests? Or have ye not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath, and are blameless? But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. So Jesus, what role is Jesus speaking in when he deals with the Pharisees? Pardon? No. I mean, no. Is he speaking as prophet, as priest, or as king? Stop and think. Stop and think. Take your time. Look at what he's saying. Look at who he's saying it to. What do you think? And by the way, don't worry about giving a wrong answer. You know why? Because we're all learning. We're all learning. Everybody's learning. Nobody ever arrives at the place where they understand everything in the Bible. Never going to happen. It would be like saying, I know Jesus perfectly, top to bottom, inside out, upside down, backwards, and forwards. You ain't never going to plumb the depths of that thing. Jesus is the most complex character in the Bible. He is so many things. He is so many things to so many people. He has done his work, his role, his person. They're so deep. We'll spend eternity with him and we'll never get done with it. You'll never get tired of it. You'll never get tired of learning about him. There will never come a time in eternity when you can ask Jesus a question and he can't give you an answer you haven't heard before. It will happen because he is truly amazing. Who wants to give me a guess? Priest. I'm thinking priest because number one, he's talking to a group of priests. All right? And by the way, what's the mistake that these priests have made speaking to Jesus? What's the mistake that they've made? They've misquoted the law. You are allowed on the Sabbath to go and pick what you can eat. You're not allowed to pick a bushel of corn and take it home. So these people are already ignorant of the law. And Jesus just calls them out on it, says, what are you? Come on, people. You're supposed to know better than this. Don't you know? And then he goes on and he says, hey, what about the folks standing in the temple every day? Aren't they breaking the law because they're working on the Sabbath? Yes, they are. What's the rule? There's an exception to every rule. That's the rule. Jesus is laying out the law to them as a priest. But then he's also, in verse 6, he says, but I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. That's a role shift. What's he being there? King. See how this thing, yes, Michael. We didn't get there yet. Hey, what did I tell you? We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. That's right. And hey, folks, we're family. Family. By the way, remember two things about family. You don't get to pick them, and no one will drive you crazy like them. Okay? Remember that. So everybody cut everybody else some slack. Every time you come to church, remember that. Cut some slack because you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. And your family is no one knows how to push your buttons like your family. And how do I know that? Because I have children and I had parents, so I know. Okay, let's look at verse 7. But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. Okay, Michael. Verses 7 and 8. What's he being? What's he being? Yeah, he's the Lord of the Sabbath. Is that prophet, priest, or king? What's he doing there? I'm leaning toward, verse 8 is king, verse 7 is priest. Yeah, because he's talking about, I will have mercy and not sacrifice. Now he's talking about, see that you have different ways of looking at every verse in your Bible. That's the point today. The point today is not to teach you Matthew chapter 12. The point today is to get you to dig through it and have fun with it yourself. That's what we want. Go home and party with your Bible, okay? Because that's what I really want you to do. I really want you to have. Listen, I survived years and years in the desert, okay, with low-calorie and no-calorie messages, okay? The rules and I was fed a steady diet of the rules and regulations of religion, which is nothing more than machinery. How did I survive? Knife and fork. And that's how you'll survive too. Listen, I plan on being an active Christian until the day I die. I plan on giving the gospel where God gives me the opportunity, preaching the word when I get the chance, showing kindness and helping when God gives me the opportunity to do so. Those are all, that's the ministry. What separates the pastor from the people? Nothing. Just a calling to do it. That's it. Everything else in ministry is, guess what? It's ministry. Do you have a widow in your neighborhood? that you take care of, that you help out on, has nothing to do with the church, guess what? That's ministry too. We were called to be ministers. We are called to show the love of God through the person of the Lord Jesus Christ in the things that we do for ourselves and the things that we do for people around us. It's not all the church. Is the church good? Yes. Is the church necessary? Yes. Is the church ordained by God? Did Jesus say, gates of hell shall not prevail against it? The church is important, okay? But it is not the only place in the universe of ministry. We do, at the impulse of the Holy Spirit of God, we are to do what He wants us to do, whether it's in the church or out of the church. There is no Christianity. I talk about the cloak of Christianity, where people put on their Christianity. They walk into the church and they look like Christians, act like Christians, smell like Christians. As soon as they're out the door, they throw that thing into the closet for another week, and they do whatever they feel like to anybody they feel like. Well, that's not the Christianity that Jesus brought us. Jesus brought us a living, vibrant Christianity that indwells us and impels us in every day. And hope, listen, nobody's perfect every minute, every day. Don't go beating yourself up over it. That's not the point. The point is, be in your skin as a Christian as much as you can be. Yes, Brother Mike. Oh yeah. I'm done. It's 8 minutes after 12. I'm done. What are you supposed to do with Matthew chapter 12 for the rest of the day? You should be able to get that done by the time the Super Bowl starts. I'm tired of watching the Patriots, but I'll put it on anyhow. But just because. Listen. Listen. I hope you had some fun today. I hope you learned something today. I'm going to say one more thing. There is always a price for the rejection of God's message of mercy and forgiveness and love. It's everlasting punishment. Don't reject. If you're here today and you have not come to the place where you realized your condition as a sinner, you have not realized that Jesus really wants to save sinners and has gone the extra mile to do so, and really, really wants to get personal with you, wants to hear you ask for forgiveness for your sin, not anybody else's, your sin, and He's willing to give it. Well, then this would be a wonderful